Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am your host, Valencia Stovall, the Honorable Valencia Stovall, and welcome to our next new season and next show on Issues and Answers. Well, of course, we're back with more episodes to provide you information and to keep you informed. This is our fourth show for the new season, and you are listening to the new WCEG Network, WCEG Talk radio.com. You can watch us live like you're doing now, but we're also available on smart TV, YouTube, the WCEG Network. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. And as a disclaimer, the topics and opinions that you will hear on this show and as me as the show host and guests are not of WCEG Network. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support and make sure you tell a friend. On today's episode, we will discuss missing persons and how it is handled in the area where you live. And also on tomorrow, we're going to discuss about these general elections that are going to be taking place tomorrow. So, of course, today you're going to be inundated with a lot of commercials, phone calls, text messages, more mailers that'll be coming in today and probably tomorrow in your mailbox. For those who have been paying attention, yes, there is a general election on tomorrow, November the 2nd. And so we'll talk a little bit about that and how important those particular elections, which are your municipal or another name is city elections. And you also have some areas have school board members that are running. All right, so let's get into the conversation. You know, we hear a lot about missing persons, and it really doesn't sink in until it happens to us or someone that we know. And recently, you know, there was a huge search that took place some months ago for a young lady who went on a trip with her boyfriend up in Wyoming. And unfortunately, they found her remains. And they also was able to link it back to her boyfriend, whose remains they also found later. The question many may have is regarding the procedures for missing persons. So are those procedures different depending on where you live or depending on what your zip code is? And so, you know, unless it happens to us personally, do we end up kind of digging a little bit deeper? So today, I'm fortunate to have as my special guest, Mrs. Crystal Perry. And Mrs. Perry, and you'll hear me referring to as Crystal, she's the founder and the CEO of Melanated Pearl. And I've worked with Crystal for several years. She also served when I did the Educate Georgia Summit. She served on our steering committee as well. I think that's when I first met her then. So that was some years ago. And ever since then, she's been running. But she reached out to me recently because of a situation or incident that happened with her husband, where she ended up having to file a missing persons report here in Clayton County. But she didn't feel like the case was handled properly. And so I invited her on my show to share her story in hopes that it may help someone else, and also look at how can we change the procedures. A lot of times things happen and we don't know why we're involved in certain situations. A lot of time it means that those procedures that were happening or things that were happening, they might need to be changed. So welcome, Crystal, to the Issues and Answers show. How you doing today?
Hello, Representative Stovall. Thank you. Happy Monday. I am great. Thank you so much for having me and talking about this issue.
Well, thank you so much for bringing the issue to my attention and also agreeing, you know, to be able to come and share it with our listening audience. And so first, tell us a little bit about Melanated Pearl, and then we'll get into hearing about your personal story, and then we'll end out with talking about the new project, the oyster shell project that you have with Melanated Pearl. But kind of give us a little information about what you have going on with Melanated Pearl.
All right, so you know I like to say, hey world, it's your girl, Melanated Pearl, bringing that black light to things that aren't quite right. So as Representative Stovall said, my name is Crystal Perry. I am the founder and president of Melanated Pearl Corporation. We are a nonprofit located here in Clayton County. Our mission is to educate, uplift, and empower. We do not discriminate, but we are unapologetic in that we do focus on services for Black women. Why? Because Clayton County is 70% African American or identifies as Black, and most of our homes are female led. And as you all know, in the last election, Black women in Clayton in particular showed out with, I think, over 80% participating. And so one of the things we've been doing at Melanated Pearl is trying to, one, make sure that that all women in Clayton County are able to live and thrive. But we've been focused on eviction prevention. As you all know, a lot of jobs were cut, virtual learning. So a lot of homes paused or lost income. And so we've been trying to make sure that families stay stable. And then as Representative Stovall said, as we are in our fourth year, we're now building what I'm calling the collective community impact initiative called the Oyster Shell, which I'll talk about more later.
All right, thank you. And how long has Melanated Pearl been in existence? You may have mentioned it.
We just celebrated 3 years. We're actually going to have our 3-year anniversary on Sunday, November 21st. So at the end of September, our fiscal year actually started in October. So we are so excited. We are right now in year 4.
Wow. Ooh, it doesn't seem like it's that long. Well, it's always
I tell you.
The people who don't have to do the work is always the ones that say, ooh, it don't seem like it's been that long. It's almost like a mother with a newborn baby. They say, oh, it doesn't seem like the baby is one. You be like, oh yeah, that baby is one.
Oh yes, yeah. I got a toddler over here. It's going from infancy to a toddler. Walking and talking. Yes, ma'am.
So tell us a little bit about the situation that happened with your husband, with the reason why.
Yes, thank you.
The person.
So my husband of 21 years, he is a diabetic, so type 1 diabetic. People may know about type 2, which is more able to be controlled through weight and weight loss and food. But those who are suffering from type 1 diabetes do not produce insulin. And so my husband is insulin dependent, meaning that a machine actually administers insulin to him. And without that, it actually can cause fatal consequences. Well, on October 11th, around 8 o'clock, 8:15, I started to get nervous because, as I said, me and this man have been together since I was 18 years old. In 25 years of being together, I will say about 8 o'clock, he is in the house. And what I initially, sometimes as a mother, you feel like something might be wrong. So I felt that feeling, and I immediately started to research, what do you do if somebody is missing? Once 9 o'clock came, I was more worried, and I actually did call 911. And this was after doing some research to find out that you do not have to wait 24 hours. So we watch a lot of movies, and I just want people to know that things that you may be thinking because of what you saw, I want you to know the truth. You do not have to wait 24 hours. If somebody is missing, if they don't show up where they're supposed to, you can report them missing. So that was the first thing. Once I actually felt my husband was missing, I didn't know what to do. So when I went to the Clayton County Police website looking for information, I was shocked to find that there was only one picture there. There were no steps, what the police might need. And so again, I'm dialing 911. The thing that you need to know is that it's going to be based on the last place that you saw them. So I live in Clayton. My husband works in Henry. So we spent about 45 minutes trying to get someone to actually take the report. Wow. So understanding too, that if you are filing a missing person report, to have that information when you call so that that time isn't wasted, because that first 24 hours is the most important. Knowing that you're going to need the tag number if they're in a vehicle. So this, again, I didn't know the tag number offhand, but you can get a tag number from the VIN if you have an insurance card. But I just want people to know I was in crisis trying to figure these things out. And then ultimately, these things, as far as a policy and protocol, should be available. And ultimately, once I dealt with the police, I feel they treated it as a domestic situation. They were asking me questions about could they come in and make sure he wasn't there. Had we been in any kind of an argument?
Wait a minute. You went fast on that one. They want to know if they could come in to make sure that he wasn't there.
So yes, the first officer that actually took the filing before she left, she said, "May I come in to make sure he's not there?" I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "Yes." She came in and walked around. And they said oftentimes they could be looking for people and they're on the premises. I reminded them we were looking for a 50-year-old man, not a child. But again, I will say once I did get the protocol, which I received 2 weeks later, it is documented that they need to make sure that that the person that's missing isn't in the home. So again, she was following protocol. The second thing was that the second officer who arrived suggested that maybe my husband left me. And really put his finger on the fact that maybe there was some kind of domestic dispute. Although I repeatedly said this is a medical issue. And I say that because we call 911 frequently because if my husband doesn't wake up, he has a low, we do need EMT medical assistance. And I was able to go to open records and pull our file to find out that we've made over 17 911 calls in 2021, each of them being a sick call. So my question was, why wasn't I given benefit of doubt? But to be standing there knowing my husband was in need of medical care and trying to convince someone that it's not a domestic dispute was demoralizing. So those are the things once, again, I knew my husband was in need. I knew something was going on. They did say that they sent out a BOLO, which is a be on the lookout. But I continued to search and I found my husband myself at 3 a.m. in a Kroger parking lot. So I could tell by the receipt that he had went to the grocery store. It said 611. All the items in the car that were cold were warm. Anything that was frozen had been melted. And ultimately it was over almost 3 o'clock. He had been in that car almost 9 hours.
Wow.
With the pump. Ultimately, he did save himself. He was coming in and out of consciousness and eventually was able to pull it out. And just had to kind of wait for his system to reset. At one point, because he was in the car with groceries, he said he was thinking, okay, to eat. But again, if you've ever experienced somebody with diabetes, it's almost like they don't understand where they are. They might be incoherent. They could appear violent because they might not be able to see you. So different, organs actually fail during that time. And so he was able to eat a little thing and he said he would pass back out. And ultimately I kept calling him, and by the grace of God, one time, thankful to iPhones, his hand hit the phone and he said Kroger. And I just started driving around the Krogers. And again, he was not lucid, but he would say Jonesboro. So I know there's a Kroger in Jonesboro. He said Pep Boys. So now I'm thinking, where's a Pep Boys? And ultimately he said Chase Bank, which I know in Clayton they're not, but actually I do know there's a Chase in McDonough. And I was able to find him in the Kroger parking lot on Jonesboro Road. So we were lucky because I just shudder to think what would have happened had he stayed in that car to the morning with insulin constantly going into his system. And that once he was safe, I said, as I talked to you, I don't want another person in crisis to have to do research.
Yeah.
I reached out to our chief of police in Clayton County, Chief Roberts. He's been very responsive. He was able to get me the policy. Again, it was 2 weeks later. And they have promised also to develop a PSA. And I'm saying that because I'm going to be looking and I'm asking others to look, where I've asked them to put out in plain writing, what will a police need if somebody is missing? Let people know you do not have to wait 24 hours. And that is a clear system of where the people's BOLO, be on the lookout, will be placed. Because right now, if you go to our Clayton County Police website, you'll see one thing. If you go to their Facebook page, you see another thing. IG is something different. And that scattered approach makes it look like we don't have a problem. But
Right.
we have a missing persons problem in Clayton County. Until something happens to you, as you said, you don't realize it. After my husband was safe, I really started to look and write it down. And I noticed that there were 12 people that I was able to count who also went missing that very same week.
Wow.
Children, teenagers, someone who has schizophrenia. And the reason that's important because each missing person case has a different protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Maddie's call refers to people who have a medical or mental issue, and that should be people should be alerted within an hour because they could be a danger to others and themselves. Versus a teenager, which again is not an Amber Alert. Amber Alert is for young kids who can't
Right.
speak for themselves. You know, it could be a domestic issue, mom or dad. There actually is a name, I can't think of it right now, for when teenagers go missing. But even to know that the protocol for first, if your teenagers go missing, they're going to characterize them as a runaway.
Mm. Wow.
So to think about that. And then the other thing is for us to be solutions driven. We don't have it now, but we are using Nextdoor and those things. But we could, as citizens, come together and say a child is missing in Riverdale. Who's willing to come and search?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I hope would be the conclusion of this happening. That one, we get a clear protocol so that anybody who goes through this experience can go to the Clayton County Police website and get information. And that from there, we could also form coalitions in our community to start the search. Because as you all know, people of color do not get the same press. So that's why I'm so glad that you're doing this for us. And right now, I think in the United States, there are 64,000 women of color missing right now.
Oh, that's a lot.
And that just gives you a little bit. And then we know what was just in the news about that young lady who was missing.
Right.
Do you know they found 9 bodies while looking for her body?
Wow.
So it's until we come together and start doing those major searches that some of our other families will even get closure. And that's what my hope is, to give us policy, not to say a person won't go missing, but that you're not alone in trying to do research while you're going through a crisis.
Right. Yeah, I think that wow, that's a lot, and especially diabetes in itself is is a troublesome disease because, like you said, that blood sugar drops down, and yeah, I'm the phone was ringing in the background, so don't pay it no attention. But when you are looking at that happening, you do get kind of unconscious. You're trying to figure out, how do I stop my blood sugar from dropping? Because once it starts dropping, there's a whole nother episode of something else that's going to actually happen. And then, like you said, having the diabetes, the one, it's a little bit different than the one that's 2.
Yep.
So and then the whole thing about being able to track him down by knowing his pattern, with knowing, okay, he goes to work this way.
Yep.
And being able to do it. But that's a lot. Just think about someone else who might not be as organized as
and
you
that's
are.
what I'm saying. I'm in crisis and I'm thinking, and that's because, again, like you said, I'm an educator, I'm a researcher, where a grandmother, for example, may not even have access to the internet or a smartphone to do that level of search or to even know what to do. A lot of even what I saw in the 12 people that were missing, that people are waiting 24 hours or 2 days because we see it on TV and that's what we think. And I just want, the public to know you don't have to wait. It's those early hours are critical, especially if somebody is harmed. And you all know about human trafficking, which is a big theme in Clayton because we're so close to this airport, y'all. So we don't realize it. But if you know somebody who does IDs or passports, right? And they get your picture and say that you're Crystal Perry and you're scared, they can put you on a plane within 7 hours and fly you to a whole nother country.
Wow.
Because it can happen that quick. So if we don't even know the processes, what to do when somebody is missing, that is time wasted. And that's what I really want, ultimately, us not to waste time when our family members are in danger.
Yeah. And even when I did a little research on missing persons and kind of looking at some other jurisdictions, and of course, they were saying that there are different jurisdictions have different protocols. And I wish that, because like you said, it depends on who is the person that's going missing, and what type of missing person would they be categorized, as. And it's unfortunate, that there's no one general standard that, may be okay within, so many hours. This is what happened. Like I said, everybody knows about the Amber Alert. We get the alert on our phones. I mean, it interrupts everything. Exactly. And then of course with Maddie's call, that gets a lot of attention as well. And like you said, I don't know of a name for the teen. I can't remember, like you said, the name for the teenager or for just a regular adult who does not fit into that category of a Maddie's call. But just I think one of the things that kind of stood out for me when you shared your story was it was almost like you were being the victim even before they even knew what was actually taking place. And I was just wondering, was that a procedure that was used even when the young lady went missing? Did they go and tell her parents that we come in the house and check to make sure she's not in there? And well, maybe she's gone off with her boyfriend and they don't want to come back or they don't want to be found.
So I will say what I found, and I will share the policy with you, and hopefully it'll be posted this week, that they do one. A was to determine whether it's a pattern of behavior. So this is something that you need to be. So if maybe there's been a time where you and your daughter did get in an argument and she left and you call, if they determine it's a pattern, then they're not necessarily going to take it seriously. The second was to determine if it's a domestic dispute. And third was a medical issue. And as I was saying, but there are certain things like diabetes where we need to do education, because a lot of people hear diabetes and they might think, oh, type 2, where type 1 is different. And it can be very, very life-threatening. Epilepsy could be another one where the person may not, be having the episode right now, but if a person in your family has epilepsy and they go missing, that's a medical issue, or seizures. So we really need to think about, even though they're adults who are having a medical crisis, should it be treated differently? I think people think yes, but until it's happening to you, we don't really hold our offices accountable for caring for us. So yes, I felt like a victim because I felt like I'm teaching about diabetes on top of, trying to actually remain calm. And also during this time, I would say we just have to continue to build a relationship, because people of color cannot be afraid to call the police.
Yeah.
Or if there's a situation where you're emotional, you shouldn't fear going to jail because you're trying to express that you're worried about your loved one. And there was a moment where I had to calm myself down because I didn't know, again, am I now going to be perceived as the threat to the police officer because I'm heightened, because I'm afraid, because I can't convince this person that the person I love is in danger. And all of that is happening while, again, the time is ticking.
Right. And I'm glad that you brought up, and there was even a comment that had come up on the live stream about not having to wait 24 hours, for that. I mean, like you said, we see it on TV, like the first 48 hours that show, I watch it. But knowing, okay, once you see that there's a different pattern that's going on, you contact, and then there's some things you might want, they never think you need to write down, but like you said, having that car tag, number, the color of it, but having the car tag, I don't know my car tag by heart. It just so happened I took a picture of my car tag and kept it in my phone so that if I'm somewhere I might need to, find it, quickly. Well, that's if I don't have a lot of pictures that I have to search through. But anyway, but having those might be some things that the listening audience, might not have thought about that they need. And it reminded me of one time, it was a little bottle they used to give you for medical alert or medical emergencies in your home. And they would tell you, it looked like a little pill bottle, but it had like a little note in there, and you had to put like your emergency contact, what the person was allergic to, or something like that. So maybe some little kid, like that could be given out to say, okay, if you ever find yourself in a situation where a person is missing, these are the things that the officer is going to need, or whoever you're talking to is going to need to be able to help process your complaint or your request for investigation. So that might be something else that that could be done, and it could be a collaborative opportunity. Yep. Now that we know that this is it, like they're doing a PSA, I definitely commend them on that. And I know, like even with the sheriff's office here, there's a nixle that goes out, so that might be something that could be included into that, because it now is an official police record if someone has been reported, missing. I know we get the Amber and the Maddie call on that nixle if it's an accident or something like that. So there are other ways, I think, as far as being able to educate the community, about it. And even with the schools, having something on the parent portal, if your child goes missing, these are the things you're gonna need to know: the height, the weight, what color the eyes are, what color.
Even the hospitals, because I was even calling hospitals asking about John Doe. But this is the thing: if we had a clear system, the hospitals could be doing a check. And one of the things I suggested was similar to you. One, we didn't do it until it happened, but to take a picture of your tag and actually to put it in your phone as a contact. Mm-hmm. So that's one way you'll have that phone, or you'll always have access to your tag. And my husband is also an introvert, so we were just blessed that we had just went to the international ball, because you're going to need a recent picture of your loved one. And I have, of course, family members who don't like to take pictures. So what we agreed on is that every 30 days to take a picture, I'll replace it. Because that's something that, again, think about. I know myself, if you see me in a month, I'm look different. But if I went missing, do you have an updated picture of what somebody looks like? Because that's what they're going to send out. And I thought, oh, that's so important. And I have a son who doesn't like to take pictures. But again, you can come up with an agreement every 30 days. I just need a new picture, replace the one in my phone, just in case. So those are two things that's in your home. Everybody take a picture of your tag and take at least an updated picture of everybody. Again, you can save it in your contact, because I'm the one who has to delete photos too. That's what they're going to say. What do they look like? And then if you can get that extra information, height, weight, age, believe it or not, I had to have this conversation with my son. He did not know our ages. So if we were going missing, do your children have the information about you, parent, to actually put a correct BOLO out, be on the lookout. And that's going to be important that information is accurate.
Okay. One other question I have is, so once the BOLO went out, does it go cross jurisdictions? So like we're like in Clayton County, we're close to Henry. And then also you have the local cities, they have their own police department that are not Clayton County Police Department, just so happen you lived in Clayton, the unincorporated. But like I said, stay in the city of Forest Park. So, finding out, okay, what's their protocol, and then how do they connect to the other? I know how they do it for drug busts. You see them, all of them collaborating together. Do they have that same level of collaboration when it comes to missing persons? I'm not saying they don't. I'm just wondering.
If it is actually filed. So the thing is, in my case, I cannot find evidence that the BOLO was filed. But when they do file a BOLO, it goes up into a national system. It actually goes into Georgia's, I want to say the Federal Bureau of Investigation, so that it does cross all jurisdictions. And that should be within 24 hours, my understanding, once it's been filed. But it has to be filed.
Okay. That's the key. It has to be filed.
It has to be filed.
Right. So, but thank you, Crystal, for all of that information. It definitely was valuable. And thank you for opening up to share, something that happened to you personally. with the listening audience, just in case something happens to them or they know somebody. Like I said, when the young lady went missing on TV, I said, oh, okay, they're doing a huge search. And they were looking, then everybody trying to figure out, was it a boyfriend? Who was it? Was somebody else? But it was a lot of time and money that was spent
into looking for her. Yep.
For her. And then when you brought up the incident that happened with your husband, I was like, why they treat you like the victim? I said, is it because where you live? You automatically think, okay, black person missing this part of black family, what they may have done. And so you definitely don't want to feel like you're the victim, especially in your case where you had the police were able to pull up the record and see there was no domestic violence ever reported. It was always something dealing with illness or sickness.
Correct.
So with that, to me, given the benefit of doubt, I know that they have to go through this whole chain of questioning to make sure they.
But it should be something. When I said diabetes, that's what I'm saying. It should be some words. If you say schizophrenia, something should make them go, okay, now C becomes A, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. That we actually prioritize. And I think it starts with us just knowing the protocol first.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to the training, that everybody's been even talking about when it came down to interactions with the police and the community, and especially the community of color, that making sure that they're trained. And that, to me, that's part of training. Don't automatically think because that person is of a certain color that they, some may fish ain't right. Whereas you might go to a white house, a white person's house, you're not going to think automatically, oh, they're doing something, kind of strange going on. And it just happens like that. And so I think that goes back to training. And so I'm glad that this turned out favorably enough where, there was no loss of life or when he had to be in the hospital or anything like that, you were able to find and thank God for that. But now we know that there's some gaps that need to be filled. And it's our responsibility as a community to make sure that we are talking with our elected officials, the ones who make the policies. Y'all always hear me talking about policies and making sure that they're on top of it and make sure whatever the support is that the local public safety departments need, that they're getting that support financially or whatever the case may be from either the local city or the county or even on the state level. But to that, even all the way up to the federal level, if there's something that needs to be done, on that particular level. So thank you for sharing that. So next. Now, melanated pearl, a lot of people, and then you gave the definition of how you came up with it, and it's one of those names that just stand out. Melanated, it just make you do like this. Ooh, I feel melanated. Okay.
Yeah.
I know that you are working on a project called the oyster shell, which I participated in your first round. So tell the audience, maybe take about 3 to 5 minutes to kind of tell them about the oyster shell. And also, I know that you are having an event that's coming, the Black Light theme event.
Yes. So the oyster shell is basically an extension of melanated pearl because we understand, as I said, we need a collaborative community impact is what I like to call it, where we're coming together collectively to address any issues, but more specifically to be solution seekers. So much in Clayton County, I always hear about funding. We could do more if we had more funding. And I feel like as a young nonprofit, we've had a lot of success. And most recently, I actually was involved in a conversation where a funder suggested that Black-led nonprofits do not get as much funding because our paperwork is not in order. And I will say, I personally, I felt some kind of way, right? Mm-hmm. And was challenged to actually bring together leaders in our community who are doing the work to actually be very specific in getting them some funding. So ultimately, we could create funding maps, but even more important, that we prioritize the people doing the work, right. So that we can be clear on what solutions are available to our citizens. So we started with an introductory meeting that was on October the 20th, where we invited leaders in and we removed all barriers, meaning that this was open to the public. We had it all day and was free because we know most of our nonprofit leaders work and lead a nonprofit. So right. We want to have multiple options. Also, that some people need thought partners. As I said, we're in year 4. We're actually coming up with something new to address our county. You want to be able to share with like-minded people who have a heart for the county, but oftentimes we never stop. I know Representative Stovall, like myself, we're always running. You're in somebody else's event, but how often do you actually stop to think about what was good about that? What do I need to do again? You know, we're just kind of always putting out fires. How about we start and make sure that no fires get started? That's kind of the idea behind it, and the oyster shell being the collective community that does it. That melanated pearl is just one part of Clayton County, but we have so many nonprofit, and not just nonprofit, but business leaders who are serving in the community. What would happen if we came together to address those issues? And so we are really trying to create the safe space to do that. B. Mari, which is in downtown Jonesboro, they've in-kind the space on Wednesdays. So every Wednesday in 2022 is available to us. So the second Wednesday will be when we have our actual oyster shell professional development, where we're going to pull in subject matter experts to go with us, talk to us about branding, finances, self-care, mental health. And again, this is not specific to nonprofits, because nonprofits are a business. There are some things that businesses must do correctly. So the professional development will be available to you. We also know that the knowledge is in the room. We have, again, representatives who have been in the government, who understand policies and can actually explain that to us, so how that we can leverage your knowledge to actually be change agents. We have access to elected leaders who have platforms. And again, after they're voted in, what is their responsibility? How do we hold them accountable? We have our commissioners. Again, these are elected positions that change, that people don't realize, that we as the citizens can actually have conversations and actually say, I would like to see this next month. But you might not feel comfortable. This is a space where you can get your pitch together. You can practice. And also, if you are a young or new entrepreneur, we are also providing the space for you to launch. So as I said, on those Wednesdays, not the second Wednesday, that's our PD, but if you wanted a Wednesday, you know, you're like, I want to, you know, launch my food business. We will actually work with you, working with the branding, getting it out, so that at the end of the experience, you can actually have a lunch, and it's at no cost to you, and see where can you actually perfect your craft. Because ultimately, as we said, educate, uplift, and empower. I know and I believe that education is a vehicle to create a pathway for change. And education is not just for K-8. All of us should be continual learners. Uplift, because at some point you're going to need a hand, right? I've needed a hand. And so the idea of being a mentor to someone. So if you're on step 2, go to help the people on step 1 to get to step 2. So we're going to remove the idea of the crabs in the barrel, that we're not going to knock anybody down, but we can share information. We can share best practices, ultimately because we prioritize Clayton County. It's important to us. And so we're not working in silos in Forest Park, which is our biggest city in our county. But I feel like get starved because of who its citizens are, right? That's the truth. But we can't ignore our Hispanic population. If we go to Morrow, we have an Asian population growing. They have very specific needs. We can't ignore them. Let's bring all of these people into the room, to the table, to create solutions for Clayton. Where do I go for mental health capacity? I want to be able to say, go to Riverdale to this location, they got $30,000. And for homelessness, right now, affordability of living. All of those things which we're talking about in our silos and our isolation, the oyster shell is providing the space and the opportunity for us to come together in a collaborative community effort. So removing the competition and truly saying, how do we come together to push our county forward?
Yeah, great. You know, that had to take a lot of a thought process and most of the time, a lot of times with nonprofits, they look at it as competition, and it should not be, because there are some things that some nonprofits do and others do better. Some do this. And I think if we're able to find a space where they can all work together, then that'll benefit our entire community, overall. And I think that, having, our different departments that issue out grants money, always giving it to the same nonprofits, is an injustice to the community, to those taxpayers who pay taxes into being able to have that money available, whether it comes from the federal government, whether it comes from the state, or whether it comes from the county. That's still our taxpayer money. And it should not keep going to the same nonprofits, and we don't see any differences in our community. I haven't seen any. And that was one of the things I even talked about, when I was in the elected position, is to, how these same organizations chosen, when I know I've seen the work of other organizations that those owners of those founders of those organizations are coming out of pocket to pay for a lot, because they're not on the level where they can get funding from United Way or for some of the other major corporations, because you have to do a lot to get to that on that list where they can be able to contact you. You're trying to get that letter of intent in, and then they end up, say, oh, no, you don't qualify for this round. But there's still a need in the community. And most of those nonprofits, small nonprofits, just start taking money out of their pockets.
Exactly.
So they can make it do what it needs to do, but then it's not a benefit to them, because now they're taking money out of survival for them, because they have a heart for being able to help others. So I think what you're doing with the oyster shell is definitely needed. And I definitely have my support, whatever I can continue to do to push it. So tell us briefly about the Black Light event that you have coming up.
One more thing about the oyster shell is I just want to make the point that the funding, we actually are distributing the funding amongst ourselves. So the accountability is in each other, because we're going to pitch to each other. So what are we doing on November 21st? We are telling you to come and celebrate that Black Light, which is our 3-year anniversary event. This, again, we are removing all barriers. It's a free event open to the public. We are targeting our elected officials and community leaders, because we actually want to bring them into the room, one, to let them know about what we're doing, but also to actually get their ideas, separate from work. What do you want from the community? Also, that work-life balance. As a representative, it's so many demands on our public officials, but you all are still moms and grandmas, and you deserve a private life, and you deserve some self-care. If you don't practice that or actually pause, you can get, if it was snappy, that, they had an attitude, and somebody misconstrues it when they might have gotten you at a vulnerable moment. But so I do want to actually take my 3-year anniversary, one, to highlight what we're doing in the community, but to, again, let's remove all of the naysaying and the talk. Well, what are they doing? Let's ask them in a, again, positive energy presence, because anybody who's elected, they're going to have to be, come up and be elected again. Right. So there is some accountability, but nobody should be attacked for trying to serve in their community. And I think even that has to be a way that we educate our citizens. It's a way that you can reach your public official, and it's not in animosity and aggression, right? So that you can actually be productive. But so even in that, we want to be solution seekers, solutions driven. And when we talk about Black Light, we're shining a light in those dark places. So it's not anything that can't be said. But when we talk about it, we're talking about it in positivity and with a solution, with the people who want to do the work.
Right. So
we're gonna have some fun too. I'm gonna feed y'all.
And how can they get in contact with you if they want to know more about Melanated Pearl, or they just want to talk in general to you, or want to be able to support the Black Light event that you have coming up?
So melanatedpearl.org is our website. And you will see that we have an events page, and the Black Light event should be listed there. If you are on Instagram, it's melanated_pearl. And if you hit our bio link, you will be able to get in touch with me through a Calendly. but also our website, and all of the individual invites are there as well. So those are probably the two best ways, but melanatedpearl.org is going to get you directly to our site, and all of our information is housed there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Crystal, for joining us and sharing your story and sharing with us about the work that you're doing with Melanated Pearl. And I look forward to seeing you real soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And again, you do not have to wait 24 hours. As soon as you feel a person is missing, report it. Thank you so much, Representative, for bringing this to the light. I know we are going to save somebody's family member.
Yes, most definitely. So everyone, so next, elections. You heard Crystal talk a little bit about the event where she's gonna personally invite, the elected officials to come out to her event. And a lot of times elected officials have a lot of information or know where to find different resources. So that's definitely a bonus to have them out for the event. And for you all, the elections are tomorrow, November the 2nd, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And if you're not sure if you're registered to vote, there's a website, the mvp.sos.ga.gov. That's mvp.sos.ga.gov. Or you could Google My Voter page. And on that page, you'll put in your first initial, your last name, your county which you are registered in, and I think you have to put your date of birth. And what that does, it brings up your voter profile, nobody else's voter profile, and you can click and find out where you're supposed to go and vote on that day. So all the precincts will be open, and you have to go to your precinct to vote. It's not like early voting. Early voting, you were able to go to designated precincts within your county or within your city. But for the general election, all the precincts will be open. So like for the city of Forest Park, they only have one precinct, and that's going to be at the Forest Park Recreation Center or the Elaine Corley Recreation Center on Forest Parkway. So you only have one place to go. You get up early, go ahead on in so you can get your vote done, and you come on out. And it's very, very important. These local elections are important. You heard Crystal talk about with her nonprofit. And a lot of times local elections like your county and your city, they sometimes receive funds from the federal government and from the state, and they distribute these particular funds out to nonprofits. Well, you want the right elected official in there that's going to understand the needs of the people and not just trying to hold a title. I know you probably don't believe, but there are elected officials out there that just want it for a title and not going to do anything. You're not going to hear from them until election time again. Then they're going to claim all these things they have done since election. And you're looking around trying to figure out where you can put your finger on something that they've done. But so that's where you play an important role on tomorrow. You're going to play a major role. You are the star for tomorrow, not the elected official, because they want you. You'll see commercials, you'll see mailers, you're going to see them texting you, you're going to see them calling you. You are MVP. That's what's My Voter page. You're the MVP on tomorrow, every election. So, in the city of Forest Park, where I reside, there's a mayor and 2 city council seats up for election. And the last show we had, I had Thomas Smith, who's a former city council member, as a guest, and he was able to share what his plans are for the city of Forest Park. And, of course, I've seen a decline in the quality and the vibrancy in that city since I moved there. And of course, we need Tommy, who will be a unifier and negotiator for our city. I've already early voted, and I'm encouraging all the residents of the city of Forest Park to make sure you go out and vote. Of course, in the city of Atlanta, now people in Clayton County, the folks in Atlanta, the mayor's race is not your race. A lot of times people get it confused. That's the city of Atlanta's race. And in that race, it's heated as well. And for the Atlanta School Board race, there's Jason Allen, seat 9, Casey Venning, seat 7 for the school board. And these are people that will be in charge of making decisions for the future education in the city of Atlanta. And also the city council for a post seat, which is an at-large. So all of these at-large means every person that's a registered voter in the city of Atlanta can vote. Those are what are meant by at-large seat. And Alfred Chevy Brooks, who's actually educated in Clayton County, but he lives in Atlanta, decided to throw his hat in the ring for Atlanta City Council. So he's only going to be on the ballot as well. So people, why you should vote, I gave you several reasons why you should vote. And, we won't go into the people that died and all this. Yes, that happened. But right now, currently, the impact that's going to have in your community and things that you want to see happen is going to be because of who you voted for or who you didn't vote for. Or if you stayed at home, then we're going to point to you, because what usually happens in these elections, there's a small percentage of people that are voting. And what happens is that small percentage are the ones who actually decide who are going to be the ones who are going to represent that particular city. So I'm encouraging you all to make sure you know where you're supposed to go for voting, and to make sure that you get there. You have 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And it shouldn't take that long for you to go in and cast your votes. For announcements, open enrollment for healthcare is taking place now for healthcare.gov. And it's set up for people who may make too much, not make enough to be able to get the insurance on their job, but they make too much for Medicaid or for the state portion of the insurance. So that's November the 1st through the 15th. And you really need someone to be able to help navigate you through it. I tried to go through it myself, and I definitely got a little confused. So I'm going to work on getting a guest for my next show to come on and to talk about how you navigate through that system and why it's important to find, to get someone to help you so you can make sure you get the best benefit and the best insurance for what you're doing with the healthcare.gov website. Okay, we had our Georgia Single Parent Coalition meeting was held Saturday before last. And like I said, we have 5 committees. If you're interested, if you're a single parent or you know a single parent, you might be interested in joining our coalition, send me an email at contact@ghostovall.com. That's contact@ghostovall.com. And also, we're in the process of getting that link up for nominating a single parent. So if you know a single parent who's been doing an outstanding job, male or female, make sure that you nominate them for our annual celebration in March of next year. So I'll be making more announcements about that, or you can look on my page, my Facebook page, to make sure that I'll be posting on Instagram and Twitter as well. I was honored to be a speaker with Destiny's Daughter of Promise. It's a girls program. It was a virtual event where I shared leadership skills, and there are 5 steps to being an effective leader. And I shared those with middle school young ladies. And if you're interested in receiving a copy of those 5 steps, you can message me, or you can send me an email at contact@ghostovall.com. And I want to thank Regina Sunshine Robinson for the invite again this year to be able to share with those young ladies. On Saturday, this past Saturday, I was invited by Nayana Harris, who's the founder of Youth Business Showcase, and it was held in Forest Park. And I got a chance to talk with a lot of young entrepreneurs, and even made some purchases and made some donations to help their particular business. I'm a supporter of young entrepreneurs because my parents started a printing business when I was about 12 years old, and my sisters and I grew up in that business. So we know the huge impact of being an entrepreneur and starting at such a young age. Now, we didn't start our own business at that young age, but we were in that arena, in that atmosphere, in that environment that helped us to be able to have better thought process of how we think things out, how we rationalize, how we do critical thinking, and also it increased our maturity level when it came down to making decisions. So I was very excited to see those young people, and we had people coming all the way from Columbus, Georgia, and Lithia Springs coming and coming and showcasing their business. So definitely, if you know of a young entrepreneur, support them. And I even follow some on my Instagram because it was funny, because I asked, I said, y'all on Facebook? They looked at me like I said a foreign word. I said, oh, I forgot that Facebook for the old people. So Instagram, give me Instagram. So I follow a lot of them on Instagram. And I shared with y'all last time that I was a part of the Life on Fire Academy. And I want to show you my mug for my Life on Fire mug that I have. And they sent us a gift box. And my affirmation or what I have to say is I am an authentic, brilliant-minded, loyal leader. So you all be on the lookout as I go through the process of being a part of this Life on Fire Academy. the Georgia General Assembly will be convening starting on Wednesday. I gave y'all an announcement at the last show to talk about redistricting in the state of Georgia. The Georgia Constitution requires candidates for the General Assembly to live in their district for at least 1 year before an election. But the majority party, which are the Republicans who are the majority party, they can change those maps and change those streets as far as the districting to make it more favorable for them. But of course, there's still rules that they have to follow to make sure they're being fair in that process. And the same thing, don't think because the Republicans in charge that they're the only ones that are doing it. The Democrats did it as well about 20 years ago before the Republicans came in. So that's just what the parties do, whoever are in control. And as you know, Republicans in Georgia currently control 58% of all the legislative seats in Georgia. And a state whose voters are nearly evenly split between the two parties. So it's going to be interesting to see how the redistricting of that map. If you all want to watch and see them convening and seeing what's going on, you can go to legis.ga.gov. That's legis.ga.gov. Of course, you're going to hear the news. They're going to be down there all those days that they're in session. But if you want to see it for yourself firsthand, you can definitely log in. I also purchased Powernomics book that I heard that's by Claude Anderson. And I heard it talked about a lot on Dr. Boyce Watkins' show. And it's a national plan to empower Black America. So I'm going to start reading that. And as I go through my show, I give some little excerpts from it as well. November the 18th, in a couple of weeks, I told you all before, I'll be a guest speaker on Excel in Ed National Summit on Education. And we'll be talking about a fine line, how most American kids are kept out of the best public schools, in which because of where their district is drawn at and how those lines were created. They're red lines, that's the actual name of it. And they were drawn a certain way, back when Lyndon Johnson was president, and it made a disadvantage to a lot of communities of color, especially in our Black communities. That's why a lot of times you see those are lower income areas, and those schools are performing lower than their neighboring schools would be that are not red line. So I'm actually going to be on a panel talking about some legislation I introduced when I was elected that did away with zoning, with school zones. And now I'm on to my Say What section. Y'all only have about 3 minutes, so I'm gonna have to rock and roll with it. Voter suppression can't be just white led, but it's also Black led too. Y'all didn't probably know that, did you? Okay, I told y'all before about what happened in the Forest Park City elections where they had paper ballots. When we have electronic machines that can be used, that is voter suppression. And that city council and mayor is majority African American. And so, and then the county is majority African American. So why is it that we have paper ballots for a city election? All right, next, in Fulton County, during the early voting locations, I noticed, and my dad lives in Fulton County, so I noticed there's only one early voting location on the southeast side of Atlanta, but there are 3 on the southwest side of Atlanta. So on the southeast side, which is usually south of I-20, there's only one early voting location at the Metropolitan Library. Of course, early voting is over because the election is tomorrow. But why don't they think that everybody vote? Why is it that it's more on one side of the town than it is on the other side? What? Say what? Yes, it is happening. The 2022 elections are heating up. There's been talk that David Perdue, the former U.S. Senator, may enter the governor's race for Georgia. Yes, it's already crowded Republican primary with Kemp, Vernon Jones, and a few others. Well, we still haven't heard from the Democrats. They're still a little quiet on who's going to run on their ticket. Say what? You mean David Perdue, who was a U.S. Senator, may run for governor? Oh, it's going to be very interesting. Well, y'all, the time has caught us up. And of course, we'll be back for our next show on Monday, November the 15th at 4 o'clock. We look for you to tune in to us. If you have some show ideas or things you really want to know or some stuff you want to add to the Say What section, definitely let us know. Contact at Go Stovall. Thank you again for listening to the show today. You know, we talked about missing persons, talked about Melanated Pearl, the projects that she had. We talked about elections. And so we had a full show this week, and we look forward to seeing you all again in about 2 weeks. It's always the first and third Monday from 4 to 5 o'clock. Enjoy yourselves, and you all be safe.